Hello, geometry students. In this video, we're going to be talking about some properties related to algebra in preparation for the next video. In the next video, we're going to be learning about proofs. We're going to learn how you can prove that a statement is true very methodically and carefully, step by step. What are the steps that we're going to be doing in proofs, though? Well, for algebraic proofs, what this lesson is all about, we are going to be using the properties of equality and some other properties as well, but mostly the properties of equality that you hold near and dear, that you've used many times in algebra class to solve for x. We're going to use those properties of equality to prove things, okay? So you've seen problems like this before. When you took algebra class, in algebra, every once in a while you run into a problem that says you need to justify each step of solving a problem. What it was saying was you need to essentially write an algebraic proof that what you're doing step by step makes sense and adheres to the properties of equality. Now, we're going to learn what proofs are. Proofs are logical, step-by-step explanations that show that something is correct. What are the step-by-step things, though, that you're going to use to show that something is correct? These are them. Okay, these properties of equality are the tools that you're going to use in proofs, as well as when we start doing geometric proofs, all the theorems and postulates that we've learned. Simplification is a justification you're going to see in this video. So we're going to simplify by adding like terms or by combining constants together. So those are the sorts of things that we're going to do. You have to be familiar with these properties of equality because we're going to be using these a lot. So I'm just going to go over what they are. The first four of these are essentially the rule. If you do something to one side of an equation, you have to do the same thing to the other side. Okay? The addition property. If you add something to one side, you need to add the same thing to the other side of the equal sign. Subtraction property. If you subtract something on one side of the equal sign, you have to subtract the same thing on the other side of the equal sign. Now, the addition and subtraction properties are unique because you only have to do them once to both sides. If I'm adding c to the left, I just add c to the right. It's not like I add c to every term. I just have to add c once on the left, once on the right. Subtract c once on the left, once on the right. Multiplication and division are a little different because of the nature of multiplication and division. If I multiply the left side of an equation by something, I need to multiply the right side. That's the multiplication property of equality. But here's the thing. When I multiply the left side, what does that mean? I multiply everything on the left side. And then I have to multiply everything on the right side. Same with division. If I divide both sides by something, first of all, I can't divide by 0 because division by 0 is a no-no in algebra, right? It's undefined. But also, if I divide anything on the left, I have to divide everything on the left by a number. And then I have to divide everything on the right by that number. Now, we're going to learn a property that's not on this list I'm going to remind you about that explains why with multiplication and division, we have to apply those to everything on the left and the right. Whereas with addition and subtraction, we just apply once to the left, once to the right. All right, next, these three properties should look familiar because we learned them as properties of congruence. We actually started with the reflexive property of congruence. A is congruent to A, but now remember, we're talking about equality, the reflexive property of equality. So a number equals itself. The symmetric property of equality. If A equals B, then B equals A. And the transitive property is like a syllogism, right? If A equals B and B equals C, then A equals C. We're going to find uses for those properties in future proofs. Just wait for it. Not in the next video, but in future videos, we'll see some uses for those properties of equality and congruence. And then lastly, this one's so important, so important when we're dealing with the types of problems we're going to be running into in this lesson, the substitution property of equality. What that is if A equals B, then B can be substituted in for A in any expression. B can be a number, so I can substitute a number in for a variable, or B can be an expression. I can substitute an expression in for a variable. That's a substitution property of equality, and it is going to come up in lots and lots of proofs. In fact, I think most proofs are going to have at least one time where you have to substitute something in. Hey, There are a couple of things that didn't make the list but are also important. You should always remember the commutative property and the associative property. The commutative property says that you can add or multiply things, depending on whether it's of addition or of multiplication. You can add or multiply things in any order, and you'll still get the same result. Okay, that's the commutative property. The associative property says that you can associate things that you're adding or multiplying with each other and simplify them in any order. Okay, so we're not actually moving the numbers around. We're simplifying. If it's A times B times C, we could do A times B first, or we could do B times C first. It doesn't matter. If we wanted to do A times C, we'd actually have to commute C so it's next to A, and then do A times C, but that would be okay too. That's the associative property. And there's one other property you should be familiar with, the distributive property. The distributive property says that you can, and this is the distributive property of multiplication. If you have A, here, let me write this one out, okay? If you have A times B plus C, that's the same thing as A times B plus A times C. This is the reason why, with the multiplication and division properties of equality, you need to apply those to everything on the left and everything on the right. Because if I multiply the left side and there's more than one term on the left side, the A that I multiplied distributes to every single term on the left, and whatever I multiply on the right distributes to every single term on the right. Okay? All right, this is, by the way, just so I put words next to it, what? Hold on. What happened there? This is, by the way, the distributive property of multiplication. All right, there we go. So now you have all the properties you need to start the next video. We're going to actually do some algebraic proofs in the next video. Buckle up, because it's going to be a step-by-step jaunt to prove that something is true.